Welcome to the Diablo 4 Campfire chat overview that went over a large number of class balance and a few other changes that will be coming patch 1.1.1. This newest patch will release on August 8th, but the full patch note blog will be posted on August 2nd, and this also includes a list of bug fixes that are included in the patch as well. This chat was basically a big W compared to the last major balance changes that changed the game in negative ways with nerfing the power all around the board. Patch 1.1.1 is basically all buffs and bug fixes, mainly buffs to sorcerers and barbarian skills, passives, legendary affixes, and uniques. The other classes also had some buffs as well to give the game some much needed improvements from the last patch. The Sorcerer had the most changes out of this patch, and they have some big improvements to things like Chain Lightning, which just might make this skill super overpowered at some point, and some major improvements to fire skills and things that have to do with burning effects. Hydra is finally getting a buff due to the Serpentine aspect. That's going to make your Hydras a lot better, they're going to last longer, and they're going to be increased duration. There's a bunch of buffs to legendary affixes for sorcerers that help with the buff Chain Lightning and the buff to pyromancy skills. The unique gloves of the Illuminator have also had some changes as well to make it a little more appealing. It looks like most changes on the Paragon board for sorcerers is where you're going to get your new survivability from. That should help quite a bit. So Sorcerer is looking pretty good compared to what they are now, and they got some new fun stuff to try with Hydras and Chain Lightning and Pyromancy skills. Barbarians were next in line to get some buffs that they really needed. They got some skill changes which are mainly for early game. There's some increases to Fury generation on basic skills, and there's a couple changes on some core skills that help with damage a little bit. There's passives that are getting some increased percentage changes. This should help overall just with some power to certain things. It's really not good. Seems like a lot of bleeding damage is getting powered up as well. Many of the barb's aspects are getting some damage increases that should help. Earthquakes are kind of useless in certain situations, so they're making some changes to those that should help with some of the legendary aspects. And the aspect of the ancestral charge is getting a 25% buff that hopefully should help. I still really want to make a charge barb and try that out. Many of the Barbarian's uniques have had some good improvements to them to make them more appealing compared to most of the good legendary aspects for weapons and armor. Druids are also getting some buffs as well to their primary skills to help in early game like Barbarian, since both classes have issues with resource generation early in the game, and the Wolf companions are getting pretty better. Actually, all companions are getting a little bit better. There's a couple legendary aspects that are getting improved Druid that should make quite a bit of difference, it looks like. And Overload's lucky hit chance should proc more often since it's at a 40% now. Necromancer's also got some pretty good buffs. Not as many as some of the other classes, but definitely looking pretty good. I'd say the unique boots, Greaves of the Empty Tomb, getting their affix replaced with it from intelligence to bonus movement speed is a huge improvement. Any extra bonus speed on Necromancers is great. And surprisingly enough, Rogues actually got some changes. It's pretty much the best class in the game, and they're sitting pretty high and mighty with just about everything right now. There's some changes to some skills that should help improve their usefulness, and some passive changes like lucky hit chance for siphoning strikes going up 10%, but it's still crazy to get those procs. And a couple of their uniques got some changes to affixes to help them out a little. This patch also includes some great general changes that make a difference in major ways. Firstly, Nightmare Dungeons and Helltides are gaining a large increase in monster density. This should help solve the gaps of downtime in these activities and make them more rewarding in XP and loot gain. Nightmare Dungeon density looks like this right now, but it should look like this after the new patch, which is a huge improvement. This hopefully should help the in-game leveling that's seeming a little too long right now, but they said they're going to keep an eye on that and see if XP needs to be increased anymore, if the monster density buff isn't enough. Bosses. Pretty much all bosses, including the Butcher and Loot Goblins, are now going to have a 100% drop chance on legendary items. Goblin drops will start at level 15, while boss drops will start at level 35. This is a pretty big change because there's going to be legendaries everywhere now. I understand the goblins because they are good and you don't see them that often, and the butcher, of course. But the bosses having it, I feel like it should still be a 50-50 chance. Maybe it's too much loot. I'm sure there's going to be a farm for it, so we'll see. The Backstabber, Cold Enchant, and Resource Drain affixes are being removed from the Nightmare Dungeon negative affix pool. Less CC and less insta-deaths are always a good thing. Finally, one extra stash tab is being added. It's going to cost some gold, but it is free. You don't have to actually buy it with real money. Our town portal has finally been reverted back to 3 seconds from 5 seconds. They said the original change to 5 seconds was to keep you from tanking a boss and teleporting out of the dungeon. But at least it's been reverted, so no issues. Bosses are actually going to get harder in World Tier 3 and 4, and this includes world bosses, which, that's fine, that's fun. You actually get to do the boss mechanics now instead of just one-shotting it, which is always fun. It gives some different gameplay. There's also been a buff to the unique item temerity, which is almost for every class, I think, but it now scales based on maximum life, and it scales depending on how much extra barrier increase you have. There was an update to one of the Malignant Hearts, the Cage Heart of Spell Breaking. If you take any elemental damage, it gives you a 10 to 20% damage reduction for 5 seconds. And lastly, for general changes, minions for druids and necromancers got a fix where the Balrog enemy's fire breath attack doesn't really do as much damage to minions anymore, so that should be a good change to help minion survivability. Lastly, they spoke about some future changes that they're looking into or working on currently. These are balance and quality of life changes that should really improve the game and stuff we've been asking for. They understand critical strike and vulnerable damage have to be pretty much taken with every build, and they'll be reworking those to bring them in line with choices like overpower and damage over time builds. This is a good thing for the health of the game, so power creep doesn't just end up being critical strike and vulnerable damage. Our horse is finally going to be able to do something. They didn't specify what, but our horse is finally going to be able to start being able to get through barriers that they thought would be fun, but it's annoying when you're playing the game and moving through the world. They also are trying to fix the boost controller bug that the horses have, so you should be able to go full speed soon, guys. They will be buffing more legendary aspects, mainly ones with flat damage increases, so that they scale properly in higher level content, and they're also going to change ultimate skills to scale better in higher level content as well. And a huge one is they're still looking at crowd control and a way to fix it. It'll be especially useful with the mob density increase that we've gotten or are getting in this patch, but at least Cold Enchant is gone for now and they're going to rework it. They only really talked about one bug fix that's coming in this patch, which should help with some of the skills that are only taking 1 skill point when they can take 3, but there should be a ton of bug fixes in this, and they're planning on squashing a ton of big bugs, hopefully in patches in the near future. Overall, they're making some good changes to improve the game. It still needs a lot of work to bring it back to what it was because we had so much power and now we're here. The Malignant Heart powers have helped a little bit, but once they start increasing more, it should make it much more fun, and survivability should be much better, and the monster density is really going to help us keep constant uptimes on things that need monster hits, stuff like that. So, overall, this was great. Thanks everybody for watching. Deuces.